Hollywood sold us fairy tales, but behind the glitz and glamour were lavender marriages scripted by studio bosses, not Cupid. These weren't love stories. They were PR cover-ups complete with locked honeymoon suites, fake kisses, and contracts signed in fear, not affection. From stars who chose love over millions, to others who couldn't even get a goodnight peck, these juicy scandals are equal parts shocking, tragic, and hilariously absurd. Buckle up, because behind every perfect couple photo was a studio exec sweating bullets. Number 1. Danny Kaye and Sylvia Fine. A marriage made in vaudeville and studio panic. Danny Kaye was Hollywood's king of comedy, quick with a joke, nimble on stage, and often cast as the lovable goofball who couldn't punch his way out of a paper bag. Off-screen, he was charming, eccentric, and tangled in rumors about his preference for male companions. Enter Sylvia Fine, brilliant lyricist, sharp as a tack, and the woman who would become Mrs. Kaye for nearly 5 decades. But before you cue the violins, let's get something straight. This wasn't exactly a storybook romance. They met while working on a Broadway flop, because what says everlasting love like a show that closed too soon? They married in 1940 in sunny Florida, and for a while everything seemed picture perfect. They had a daughter, Dina, in 1946. They were a power couple on paper, but by 1947 cracks were showing. Kaye had reportedly realized their marriage lacked meaning, while Sylvia, ever the puppeteer, admitted to literally changing piano octaves to manipulate how he sang. That's not love, that's musical mind control. They briefly separated. Rumors swirled. People whispered that the marriage was a PR stunt, a lavender smokescreen to protect Kaye from the era's unforgiving gaze. He was, after all, no leading man in the traditional sense, too fey, too flamboyant, too fabulous. And yet they reunited 7 months later and somehow stayed together until Kaye's death in 1987. Was it love, loyalty, fear of scandal, or simply two brilliant people who decided to ride out the Hollywood circus together? Whatever it was, their bond outlasted most real Hollywood marriages. It wasn't passionate, it wasn't perfect, but it worked. In a town built on illusion, Danny and Sylvia turned their maybe marriage into a masterclass in survival. Who needs roses when you've got rhythm? Number 2, Janet Gaynor and Adrian the Star, the designer and the most fashionable cover-up in Hollywood. Janet Gaynor was America's sweetheart, the first ever Oscar winner, a box office darling, and always glowing in that old Hollywood light. Adrian was MGM's legendary costume designer, dressing Garbo Crawford and nearly every woman who ever sashayed across a silver screen. But behind the silk gowns and glittering smiles, a lavender marriage so elegant even the lies had good tailoring. They tied the knot in 1939, and on paper it was a match made in movie magic. But within the industry, everyone knew. Adrian was openly gay in Hollywood circles. Gaynor was whispered to be bisexual, possibly in a long-standing relationship with co-star Margaret Lindsay. Hollywood didn't need a wedding, it needed camouflage. And oh, what a stylish smokescreen it was. They had a son, Robin, in 1940, and spent their days traveling the world with Gaynor's best friend, Mary Martin, and her husband, Richard Halliday. You know, just 2 Hollywood couples and maybe one very cozy foursome living the dream, and possibly sharing more than sunscreen at their Brazilian ranch. Bob Cummings once quipped Janet Gaynor's husband was Adrian, but her wife was Mary Martin. Was he joking? Possibly. Was he wrong? Probably not. Despite the murmurs, Adrian and Gaynor insisted their marriage was happy. And in many ways, it probably was. Emotional partnership. Check. Shared secrets. Check. Fabulous vacation homes. Double check. While others cracked under the pressure of pretending this duo made secrecy look chic. When Adrian died of a heart attack in 1959 while working on Camelot, how fitting Gaynor was devastated. But true to Hollywood form, she remarried 5 years later to producer Paul Gregory, continuing the fine tradition of strategic companionship. Janet and Adrian proved that in a town where everything is make-believe, even love could be well tailored to fit. Number 3. Rudolph Valentino, the Latin lover who couldn't get past the hotel door. Rudolph Valentino, Hollywood's original Latin lover, the man who made women swoon and men question their barbers, wasn't just a heartthrob, he was a PR puppet caught in Tinseltown's fakest romance. Enter Gene Acker, glamorous, already more famous than Rudy, and secretly not that into men. Their wedding was supposed to be a match made in Hollywood heaven, but it turned out to be hell with a locked door. Literally. On their wedding night, Acker slammed the hotel room door in Valentino's face and kept it shut. They never consummated the marriage, but bless his heart, Valentino kept writing her love letters like a sad character in a silent movie, completely unaware she was gay and totally uninterested. Meanwhile, the studios were sweating. Valentino started taking on roles that weren't quite manly enough for 1920s America. Hello turbans and eyeliner in Monsieur Beaucaire, and the public started whispering. So what did the studio do? Easy time for Lavender marriage number 2. This time they paired him with Natasha Rambova, a costume designer already in a very real relationship with actress Alla Nazimova. Lavender love triangle anyone. That marriage lasted about as long as a dramatic pause. By 1925 it was over and the press dubbed him the Pink Powder Puff, which in today's language roughly translates to not macho enough for America. Poor Rudy just wanted to be himself, but Hollywood had other plans. In the end, both of his marriages were studio-engineered disasters. Proof that no amount of forced chemistry or studio panic can fake real love. Valentino wasn't a fraud. He was just trapped in a script he didn't write. Number 4. Rock Hudson and Phyllis Gates, the studio's most romantic crisis management plan. Rock Hudson had it all: looks that could melt butter, a smile that made women faint, and a secret that could end his career faster than you could say Hollywood scandal. In the 1950s, he was the ultimate man's man on screen. Off-screen, let's just say the man preferred a different kind of leading role. When Confidential magazine threatened to out him for his relationships with men, his agent didn't call a lawyer, he called a wedding planner. Enter Phyllis Gates, Hudson's lovely secretary turned emergency bride. It wasn't love at first sight. It was damage control at first press leak. Within weeks, the two were married. The cameras were flashing, and the studio executives were popping champagne not for romance but relief. But behind the white smiles and wedding cake, a cold war of suspicion. Gates, perhaps genuinely in love or just playing her part, started noticing cracks in the fairy tale. So what did she do? Hired a private investigator, complete with hidden microphones, to catch her husband confessing. Imagine being recorded in your own living room by your own wife. Awkward doesn't begin to cover it. Hudson, meanwhile, played the perfect husband for 3 years, no small feat considering the tabloids and his own unhappiness. When rumors finally exploded, so did the marriage. They split, the studio moved on, and Hudson kept living the lie until AIDS forced the truth into the open in 1985. He became one of the first major stars to die from the disease, a tragic finale to a life directed by fear. The saddest part, Rock Hudson didn't fall from grace. He was pushed by a system that loved his face but never let him be himself. Number 5. Barbara Stanwyck and Robert Taylor, Hollywood's longest-running PR stunt. If Hollywood had an award for most convincing fake marriage, Barbara Stanwyck and Robert Taylor would have swept the category for nearly 2 decades. But behind the glamorous red carpets and perfect studio portraits was a couple so awkward even their honeymoon ended with Taylor sleeping at his mother's house. That's not just a red flag, that's a 5-alarm fire. Barbara Stanwyck was a powerhouse on screen and, according to biographer Axel Madsen, a closeted lesbian off it. Robert Taylor, dashing, charming, and surrounded by whispers about his own orientation. So what do two beautiful, possibly not straight stars do in 1930s Hollywood? They get married because MGM told them to. Their nuptials in May 1939 weren't exactly driven by passion. Studio executives orchestrated the whole thing after a gossip magazine called them out for being Hollywood's hottest unmarried duo. Taylor's only real input, saying "I do" with all the enthusiasm of a man signing up for jury duty. Insiders say the couple had separate beds, separate lives, and shared one thing: a need to stay off the scandal pages. Taylor reportedly told actress Shelley Winters over dinner that Barbara was gay and that the whole marriage was just for show. Meanwhile, he was having flings with Ava Gardner and Eleanor Parker on the side. In 1950, Taylor spent the year in Rome filming and very publicly romancing Italian starlet Lea DeLeo. When Stanwyck flew to confront him, hoping to save their marriage, he basically shrugged and said, "Sure, let's get divorced." Ouch. Their divorce, finalized in 1951, ended one of Hollywood's most carefully crafted illusions. It was less a love story and more a long-running cover-up with great lighting. In the end, Stanwyck and Taylor didn't fall out of love, they were never really in it. Number 6, Cole Porter and Linda Lee. Thomas Love lyrics and the classiest closet in town. Cole Porter wrote songs that made America swoon, sultry, witty, devastatingly romantic. But behind every clever rhyme and champagne-soaked melody was a secret as stylish as his tuxedos. Cole was gay, and his muse was his wife. Enter Linda Lee Thomas, socialite, fashion icon, and divorcee with $1 million settlement from a toxic first husband. She met Cole at a Paris wedding in 1918, and sparks flew, not the rip-your-clothes-off kind, but the "I just met my best friend who will help me hide my sexuality with elegance" kind. They married in 1919, and for the next 34 years, they were the glamorous power couple. No screaming matches, no scandals, just lavish soirees, matching luggage, and a marriage built on wit, loyalty, and an unspoken understanding. Cole had flings and full-blown affairs with men, actors, composers, chorus boys, you name it. Linda knew. She wasn't naive. She was practical. She offered him freedom, he gave her devotion. They were each other's beard bestie and emotional support in an era that allowed none of that to exist out in the open. They bounced between New York, LA, and Paris, sipping martinis while hiding one of the most elegant open secrets in entertainment history. And somehow, through all the glitter and whispered gossip, they were genuinely happy. Maybe not sexually, maybe not traditionally, but in their own code, absolutely. When Linda died in 1954 from emphysema, Cole lost more than a wife, he lost his anchor. He never remarried, never really recovered. In private, he admitted she was the love of his life, just not in the way society expected. And maybe that's the most Cole Porter thing of all: unconventional, clever, and far more honest than anyone dared admit at the time. Their marriage wasn't about hiding, it was about survival style and the deepest kind of companionship. Because when it came to love, they did it their way and with perfect orchestration. Number 7, William Haynes and Jimmy Shields, the star who said no to Hollywood and yes to love. In 1930, William Haynes was the king of the box office, handsome, charming, and cashing studio checks faster than you could light a cigarette. But while other stars were signing fake marriage contracts, Haynes was too busy living openly with the love of his life, Jimmy Shields. Yep, openly, in the 1930s. With matching beachwear, no less. Hollywood didn't know what to do with that. So when Haynes was arrested in a YMCA with a sailor, Yes, really, MGM's mighty Louis B. Mayer called him in for the ultimatum. Marry a woman or kiss your career goodbye. Without missing a beat, Haynes looked Mayer dead in the eye and said, "I am married." Mic drop. Mayer wasn't amused. Haynes was immediately blacklisted, his career iced, and his name erased from the leading man rotation. But instead of crawling back or faking a wedding for a few more films, Haynes walked right back home to Shields. And together, they built something even more impressive than a film resume, an empire. Haynes and Shields founded William Haynes Designs, which soon became the go-to interior design firm for Hollywood royalty. Joan Crawford, their longtime friend, called their relationship the happiest marriage in Hollywood. And coming from her, that says something. They were inseparable for nearly 50 years. No PR spin, no sham ceremonies. Just two men in love building homes for others while fiercely protecting their own. When Haynes died of lung cancer in 1973, Shields couldn't bear the loss. Just 3 months later, he took his own life, leaving a note that read, "I now find it impossible to go it alone. I am too lonely." They now rest side by side in Santa Monica together, forever, no studio approval needed. In an era where most played by Hollywood's cruel rules, William Haynes said no to the script and yes to something real. Now that's a leading man. Number 8, Tyrone Power and Annabella, the swashbuckler, the French star, and a script he couldn't rewrite. Tyrone Power was the ultimate matinee idol, sword fights, smoldering stares, and cheekbones you could slice cheese on. Women fainted. Studios cashed in. And yet behind that devilish grin was a man constantly trying to balance who he was with who Hollywood needed him to be. He met Annabella, a bold French actress with more edge than a fencing duel on the set of Suez. Sparks flew, not studio-manufactured ones, but real, messy adult ones. Against the wishes of studio boss Daryl Zanuck, who thought even getting married would ruin Power's appeal to female fans, Tyrone married her anyway. Scandalous. But this wasn't your typical lavender marriage. There was genuine affection, and also a lot of complications. Power, widely rumored to be bisexual, had a wandering heart and a very full dance card with both men and women. One of those dalliances, a young Judy Garland. That fling reportedly ended with heartbreak and an abortion, sending Judy into one of her first spirals. Meanwhile, the marriage with Annabella became a quiet war of distance and silent breakfasts. By 1946, things had unraveled. Tyrone took a 6-week soul-searching trip to South America, accompanied by his longtime friend and rumored lover, Cesar Romero. Let's just say it wasn't exactly a spiritual retreat. Annabella, tired of the emotional chaos, demanded a divorce. Tyrone eventually remarried and had children, but the rumors of secret relationships with men never left him. He died young at 44 from a heart attack, while filming Solomon and Sheba, a leading man to the very end, still hiding parts of himself the studio never allowed him to show. Power's story wasn't just about stardom. It was about the cost of image, the weight of secrets, and a man trapped between the role he was born to play and the one he was forced to live. Number 9, Cary Grant and Randolph Scott, Hollywood's handsomest roommates. Before there was Brokeback Mountain, there was Beachfront Bachelor Pad. In 1932, two of Hollywood's dreamiest men, Cary Grant and Randolph Scott, moved in together. Officially, just two handsome bachelors saving on rent. Unofficially, the greatest love story the studio system never allowed to happen. The press called it bachelor bliss. The photos. Two shirtless heartthrobs lounging in swim trunks, flipping burgers, sharing cocktails, and wait. Was that matching robes? Fans swooned, studio heads panicked, and gossip columnists raised both eyebrows. So what did Cary Grant do? The Hollywood thing, of course he married someone else. Enter Virginia Cheryl, beautiful actress, short-lived wife. She filed for divorce after 7 months, citing abuse, drinking, and zero romantic interest. Oof. Not exactly a Hallmark ending. Post-divorce, Cary didn't just rebound, he moved right back in with Randolph Scott. Subtle right fashion critic Mr. Blackwell, who lived with them for a while, spilled the sequined tea years later. They were deeply, madly in love. Forget the PR lines behind closed doors. It was devotion, warmth, and real affection. But try telling that to the studios. Every time Grant's popularity soared, they arranged another marriage. 5 wives later, the only relationship that truly endured was the one Hollywood refused to acknowledge. Their bond lasted over a decade longer than most Hollywood marriages, and definitely more believable. Sure, they didn't have a wedding cake or a license, but they had something rarer in showbiz: honesty behind closed doors, and a shared life that couldn't be completely erased. Cary Grant and Randolph Scott weren't just confirmed bachelors, they were partners in the truest sense. Hollywood sold them as roommates. History remembers them as something far more real. Number 10. Anthony Perkins and Barry Berenson, Psycho Secrets and the Last-Ditch Marriage. Anthony Perkins made his name by stabbing women in showers in Psycho, but his real-life fears were less about mothers and more about being found out. Hollywood's favorite boy next door, with a twitch, hid a tangled truth behind his charming smile and nervous energy. Behind the scenes, Perkins had long-standing relationships with men, including a very real romance with heartthrob Tab Hunter. He also reportedly sought cures for his orientation, because this was Hollywood in the 1960s, where therapy wasn't for healing, it was for hiding. And when that didn't work, well, time to roll out the lavender carpet. In 1973, at age 41, Perkins married photographer and socialite Barry Berenson, a woman just luminous enough to pass as his perfect match. They had 2 sons, took red carpet photos that screamed domestic bliss, and fooled everyone except the people who knew him. According to Hollywood insider and infamous fixer Scotty Bowers, Perkins still craved adventure and would ask, "Who do you have for me tonight? That'll surprise me," not exactly the words of a happily married man. But to Barry, he was a devoted father and husband. And to the public, he was just another actor with a picture-perfect family. Until tragedy hit. In the early 90s, Perkins was diagnosed with AIDS, but he kept it secret, even from close friends. He died in 1992, just as he was reportedly preparing to come out publicly and tell his real story. Heartbreaking. Yes. Shocking, not in that era. And just when you thought the story couldn't get more tragic, Barry Berenson, his widow, was a passenger on American Airlines Flight 11. She died in the 9/11 attacks, leaving their 2 sons completely orphaned. Anthony and Barry's marriage may have started as a cover, but by the end, it was a quiet partnership filled with love secrets and a shared desire to protect their children from a world that wasn't ready for the truth. Number 11. Tab Hunter and Alan Glazer, the teen dream, who outsmarted the studio system. In the 1950s, Tab Hunter was the all-American dreamboat, blonde, blue-eyed, and so clean-cut you could eat off his jawline. Girls plastered his posters on their walls. Studios spun fairy tales about his love life. But while Warner Brothers was busy pairing him with Natalie Wood and Debbie Reynolds in fan magazines, Tab was quietly dating Anthony Perkins. Plot twist. Unlike many of his contemporaries who got roped into lavender marriages faster than you can say beard, Tab played it cool. He never married a co-star, never signed up for the fake wedding photo ops, and somehow managed to date men under the radar, while maintaining his status as the nation's heartthrob. It was a tightrope act, and Tab walked it in saddle shoes. He once said, "I was living two lives, and it was very difficult for me." No kidding. Being America's golden boy by day and sneaking through the back doors of gay bars by night is enough to give anyone emotional whiplash. But then came Alan Glazer. The film producer wasn't just Tab's partner, he became his ride or die for over 35 years. They lived together, worked together, and eventually, once the laws and the world caught up, married each other. No secret tapes, no sham ceremonies, no studio execs wringing their hands behind closed doors. And the best part, Tab got the last word. In 2005, he published his memoir, Tab Hunter Confidential, laying it all out, the lies, the pressure, the hidden romances. Instead of scandal, he was met with standing ovations. Turns out people liked the real Tab better than the studio version. He passed away in 2018, just 3 days before his 87th birthday, but not before proving you could survive Hollywood with your dignity, your partner, and your truth intact. Tab didn't just escape the lavender trap, he burned the script and wrote his own ending. Number 12. Charles Laughton and Elsa Lanchester, the monster, the muse, and the most British lavender marriage ever. Charles Laughton could play kings, hunchbacks, and homicidal preachers, but the one role he never fully embraced, straight husband. When he met Elsa Lanchester in 1927, she was a quirky bohemian actress with wild hair and even wilder opinions. He was a tortured, closeted Catholic racked with guilt. Naturally, they got married in 1929, because nothing says romantic union like a man crying about his sexuality and a woman who thinks marriage is optional. Shortly after their vows, Laughton told Elsa the truth: he was gay. Her reaction, a shrug, and a cup of tea, probably. She didn't need a conventional husband. He didn't need to pretend around her. Their marriage became less a passionate romance and more of an intellectual, creative, and oddly endearing alliance. They lived in separate emotional universes, but shared a house and a sharp wit. Laughton had relationships with men, including a decade-long affair with actor David Roberts. Elsa, meanwhile, spent her nights performing at the Turnabout Theater with a group of gay men who lived together as what we'd now call a throuple. You can't make this stuff up. Though they never had children, Elsa claimed Charles's sexuality was the reason. Though she admitted to having 2 abortions, they stayed married for 33 years until his death in 1962. She once wrote, "I despised women who needed a man. I thought, I'll show them." And show them she did by turning a lavender marriage into a life of artistic freedom and mutual acceptance. They weren't lovers. They weren't even always friends. But they were something deeper, 2 outsiders surviving Hollywood's expectations by writing their own strange, brilliant script. Because sometimes love doesn't look like a kiss at the altar. It looks like a truce between 2 souls who refused to conform. Number 13. Judy Garland and Vincente Minnelli. Somewhere over the rainbow was a whole lot of denial. Judy Garland had the voice of an angel, the soul of a storm, and the love life of a Greek tragedy. So naturally, when Hollywood needed to tame her wild image, they handed her over to a gay musical director. Enter Vincente Minnelli, talented, flamboyant, pre-Hollywood, and fully aware of who he was before MGM politely shoved him back into the closet. He met Judy on the set of Meet Me in St. Louis, and while she was 23 and he was 41, sparks flew, or at least flickered under a heavy layer of denial, studio contracts, and sequins. They married in 1945, and on the surface it looked like a perfect union of art and artistry. Behind the scenes, more like a Broadway drama with too many rewrites. Judy knew Vincente was gay. Everyone did. But this was Hollywood, where inconvenient truths were just things you edited out of the third act. They had a daughter, Liza Minnelli, the future icon, and for a brief moment, Judy tried to believe the fantasy. But reality hit harder than a high note. She reportedly caught Vincente in compromising positions, not once but twice, with a bit player and the gardener. No, really. The betrayal wasn't just sexual, it was emotional. Judy spiraled into addiction breakdowns and bitter arguments on set. Vincente, meanwhile, poured his heart into his films and occasionally other men. Their marriage collapsed in 1951, but the emotional wreckage lingered for decades. Judy would later advise her daughter to marry gay men, saying they made the best husbands. Funny, sad, terrifyingly honest. Their relationship was never built to last. It was a carefully choreographed dance around Hollywood's morality clauses. And when the music stopped, all that remained was a broken woman, a silenced man, and a daughter raised in the shadows of both. Somewhere over the rainbow, Judy was still chasing love. But under the studio lights, all she found was a script she didn't write and couldn't escape. In old Hollywood, love was rarely spontaneous. It was scripted, rehearsed, and approved by the studio boardroom. Behind every glittering couple was a contract, a cover-up, or a quiet heartbreak. Some stars played along, others paid the price. But all were trapped in a system where the image mattered more than intimacy. These weren't just fake marriages. They were survival tactics in a world terrified of truth. And if Tinseltown could fabricate romance this flawlessly, you have to wonder what other secrets are still collecting dust in those Golden Age vaults.